Stories do we have from Dust Devil?
Holy shit, man, that was it. And there were different eras of it. So.
Right, there was parts of Dust Devil that I wasn't present for, and from what I hear, maybe that was for the best.
I don't know. There's a lot of zany shit, but it's okay now.
Yeah.
I remember, like, your era, the funnest thing was when we got into the Red Room, which is this little hole in the wall on East 4th Street. I used to love this venue, but apparently the guys were criminals, so we went in to try to book another show, because I think we had played there like 3 times, and it was a blast, and we wanted to set up another, and the real owners, I suppose they were, some sort of investors, took me in a back room and questioned me as to where the people were that I was asking for. I'm like, I just want to book a gig, man. But it had something to do with embezzlement and stealing money and making out of town, and no more Red Room after that.
Yeah. I do remember that. I was with you at that point. And I don't remember them taking us in a back room or anything, but they were definitely just like, we want to know what you know about these guys. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, we don't know shit about these guys. We know that they fucking kick us a little bit of money to come and play a show.
We know that we want to play here. And then, you know, and we even said at the end, like, so does that mean we can't play here? And they're like, get out of here. No, of course not.
Which I feel is a mistake on their part. Like, there were plenty of people coming to those.
Only one way to make up that for that money, buddy.
Right.
Let us come play the show.
You gotta have something going on. Might as well be us.
How was the songwriting process different for this song than most in Dust Devil for Freedom and Gunpoint? I think maybe that one was, I don't know if that was any different, actually, to be honest with you. Maybe you have some memories that I have differently about that one, but it was a bit more spontaneous, I guess you'd say that one. It was a bit on the spot, as opposed to something that usually the arrangements were worked out before it was, presented to you to riff over and put lyrics and vocals to. That one, if I remember correctly, was probably a bit more spontaneous and happened right on the spot.
Yeah, the process for this one really stuck out for me. Like, it was typically either I would be bringing a song in and then you guys would kind of elaborate on it, or Mike would be bringing a song in and I would be putting lyrics on it. And this one was basically everybody was just tuning up at the beginning of practice and just started fucking around, and we were like, well, this ridiculously simple thing, if we throw some interesting rhythms to it, actually makes a pretty good fucking song. And so we ran with that, and it ended up being one of our favorites. Like, it was often one that I think we would open with, because it was kind of a good way to just get warmed up and still be playing a pretty fucking cool song. Um, yeah, I remember. I remember some shit about that practice in general that maybe I should just omit, but it was it's hilarious, and it is a story that I like to kind of tell folks just off off the public record. But yeah, those folks who know me that are watching this, I guess, just message me if you want those details. But it ended up being a good song, and I remember that day vividly. It was quite the deal.
I remember when you guys started writing Freedom at Gunpoint, and I really loved the whole Freedom at Gunpoint ideology behind it. Just the whole, oh yeah, you're free, but under our control. And I always loved the view of that.
Do you think the anger expressed by songs like Freedom at Gunpoint was justified? I definitely think so. I think at the time, um, I think at the time, the world was going crazy and there was so much war, and all that youthful angst came through and really built some good music. I think it was totally justified, and I think it was necessary. And I think it came out beautifully in song form.
Do I think songs like Freedom at Gunpoint could still get crowds up and moving at a live show today? Absolutely. I think all of these songs are still very good today. And it wasn't just a concept of being a teenager and supporting friends. Like they're great songs. They're songs that I would have in my playlist. Like they're of such a good quality and have definitely stood the test of time. And I can definitely say that a big part of my life comes from, and part of who I am comes from the time that I spent around both Never Better and Dust Devil. And that will always be something that impacts my life and some of the things that I enjoy and some of the appreciations I have both for music and live music and some of those things that are still a part of my life, 20 plus years later.
So this song in particular, I think may have gotten even more relevant over time, because what the fuck was going on back then was some bullshit, and we were, absolutely just, revolting against that through this song. And what's going on now is even bigger bullshit, and everything that was said back then is like doubly so now. It's like, as hypnotized as people fucking were back then, doubly so now. As fucking blind as people were back then, doubly so now. And as much as we were like, you will not drag me into this bullshit as it was back then, doubly so now.
What is your favorite memory of Dust Devil? Well, there's quite a few. I just remember one time, though, at Knuckleheads, we had a show. Well, and it depends on the era, because there's the era where you, Brian, were singing, and then an era where Mike was singing, and then an era where we had a new drummer and a new singer also. And each one of those had some wild shit. Probably the era with you is the Red Rum Room, when we used to book that one, and then we found out that those guys skirted town with the money, and it was a whole dramatic thing. Like, we got put in a back room when we were trying to book a gig one time looking for these people, and they're like, how do you know those people? I'm like, I don't know. And the reason we came back to book is because the last show we played there before that was like a whipped cream wrestling match or something like that. We were playing with this rap rock band, and they got insane. And then And the next one in the Mike era, my favorite show was probably a Knucklehead show where we had Knuckleheads just packed this night. It was we did it a couple times, but this was a particularly fun one. We had like a 5 or 6 band bill, and the cops ended up showing up, and there was underage people that they were trying to skirt out the back door, and the roof just flew off the place. It was insanity. We lost our drummer, found him in a dumpster in the back somewhere, like. And then, of course, the wrestling. There's the whipped cream wrestling. I don't know. We were playing with those guys from Stead.
Face bath?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Shit got all sideways on that one. That was one of the. It was a pretty, for like as early as we were starting out too. It was a pretty good crowd size for that one. Yeah. Well, obviously when you have chicks wrestling and whipped cream, that's probably gonna have a big turnout. Perhaps they were not there to see us, but
I think it was both. I think people wanted to listen to heavy metal and see naked chicks. So it sounds like a good time to me. I remember Josh, of all people, got picked because it was like girl versus girl, and then there was one girl that didn't have an opponent, so she picked somebody out of the crowd, and it was Josh, of all people. Had to hose him down so he could get back into my fucking car at the end of the night.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a doubt in anybody's mind that was my fucking favorite show with Dust Devil. Not a doubt.
And that's the difference between playing in Myrtle Creek and Reno.
Yeah. I mean, if Myrtle Creek would have given me enough time and money. Let's see. I remember, wasn't there Club Archaic? Was that the name of it? Didn't we play there a couple times?
Yeah, I don't know if we played there when it was called Archaic. I think Mike did. Mike was in a couple projects that played when it was Archaic, but it turned into Club Underground. There's a front side of that venue and a back side of that venue. Both had bars, both had stages, and they were separate venues at one point, and the front was called Archaic. But at some point they consolidated, it became one, and it was Club Underground. And you had the front room and the back room.
That's what it was. Is it was actually, there was a brief period of time in Dust Devil before you were in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
we did play a show when it was Archaic.
Yeah.
And then shortly after you were in Dust Devil.
Oh, I loved it. At some point during that era, I had a connection everywhere on 4th Street. And in Underground, we knew Doug, the sound guy, really well there. And that's who I had to go through. I don't think I met the owners on a couple occasions, but they did change ownership a lot. But yeah, at one point, it was so sweet. We could go in and, did you want the front room or the back room, or did you want both? And I could really just say, put me on the calendar for the front or the back, or if I had some schemes in my head, give me the whole venue, and then start putting bands on it and booking the whole thing. And we were really cooking at one point when I was able to get both rooms, and we started having shows with like bands like Red Cell and Grayscale and 13 Steps, I think, was another one. Yeah, it was cool.
That's the names of those bands I was looking for. Those guys, every single band that he just mentioned, fucking solid ass bands. And I remember thinking, man, there's more solid bands here than I thought there were going to be, from what I had kind of heard the Reno music scene was, because not that those other bands weren't talented, it just wasn't the kind of music that I was looking to hear or, be booked with. I mean, I'd have shared a stage with those other bands too. It would have been fine, but it was nice that it was bands that I was excited to hear, not just bands that were going to be playing music that I didn't like, but that I was going to show support to because they had the balls to get up on stage with what they had and do what they felt.
I remember there used to be this venue out in the North Valley's of Reno too, in Lemon Valley. I'm trying to remember what the fuck the name of it is now. I can't remember it. It's this tiny little hole in the wall, Lemon Valley. And because it was so small and so tight-knit, that they could have like a bar and all ages at the same time. And the place would just go off. It'd be way better than playing any of the fucking circuits we play on 4th Street every fucking weekend. Because it's the same tweaker assholes, you know, or the same people who were in bands already thought their shit was cooler, or whatever the stupid politics was, anything. But whenever we'd go out north to Lemon Valley, that one little fucking place, and I can't remember the name of it now. I know it's going to come to me after we do this, and I'm going to go, shit, and text it. But those kids would show up, and they'd beat the shit out of each other. And they would listen. They would remember your shit. They would remember you, you know? That's what I remember, too, about doing a lot of stuff with Morthio in Myrtle Creek, in Canyonville, Roseburg, those rural areas out there. Those are the places to stop, because that's places that was appreciated. And I remember all the time we were in whatever project that was happening at the time, there was always this debate and people talking shit about stuff like, we need to move to LA, or we need to play real gigs at big places, and that was always kind of the stigma, and I'm here to tell you now, no. You get lost in the bullshit. Go move to LA, go play a bar for 10 people who no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your regular spot.
If they'll let you.
Well, you can. I mean, it's the give and take, right? Because you go to a bigger market like that, there is plenty more places to play. It's easier to get into places, but because of that, you don't have the audience engagement like you do from the small towns. Because, like I said, no one else gives a fuck about those people. So when someone rides through there, they just appreciate it more.
Right.
Yeah. You could get 30 kids in a small town, and it'd feel like a huge show because everyone's into it, versus 10 people in a big fancy bar, all like this. You know?
Tell me about how the recording process went with RX. RX, that's just the way it was back then, man. Now we have computers, and it's super easy to record stuff and make it sound good. And back then, you're just a ignorant dude carrying a bunch of stupid instruments, and all you know how to do is turn the volume up and make noise, and to try to transpose that into digital sound, or even CDs back then, and vinyl, and transpose it into that kind of recording sound was a bit of a mystery to us. So, and it was to a lot of people because it wasn't so readily accessible through DAWs and plugins and all these things. You had to work at it a lot more, and there was a bit more science to it. So as a result, you had to end up shopping around, finding a bunch of other studios that you pay probably a better price for, but you're kind of on their learning curve. And I think that's what it was with RX Audio. Not that they weren't good at what they did. It's just these were guys that usually had a little industrial studio out in Sparks, and they like to make beats, right? And they recorded rappers and shit. So in comes this fucking metal band, and they were a little like, what the fuck is this? You could tell it was a little bit out of their norm, and it was a little bit out of our norm.
One of the things I remember most about that recording is, like we have talked about previously in like the Never Better stuff, and a little bit in Morthio probably, is that when you would record back then and you were super broke, like you didn't have a ton of money to spend, but what you did have to spend, you were going to spend on this recording, we would practice our asses off because every mistake was going to take you some more of your recording time. So you wanted it to be as tight as it could be going in there. And I remember, like, and it's happened a few times, that my voice just needed a rest. Because when you break a guitar string, you just put a new fucking guitar string on, or when you break a drum head, you replace it. But when you fuck up your voice, you're just at the whims of how fast you heal. And we had over practiced in such a way that my voice was half blown out before we ever got there. And then we got there and we got through the first song and we were good, And then we got to this song, and my voice was pretty blown out. And we did what we could to get through. We had heard other recordings of like live stuff where my voice had been blown out, and it still sounded pretty decent, but that's not how we were feeling on this recording. And so reluctantly, I let these guys put some effects, because these guys, you know, even though like he said they're usually recording rap stuff, he had a vocal distortion on there, and he was like, I never thought I was going to use this, but hey, check this out, I can do this for you. And so he threw that on there, and I was like, well, it does sound better with that on there in spots. And so we kept it in some places. And yeah, I think the recording overall turned out well, but it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of this going wrong, because we worked too hard to keep it from going wrong. And yeah, just my voice was fried, and I did everything I could to not make this a waste of our money, but you're really limited on what you can do at that point. And I think it turned out well considering that, but I just remember that being like, fuck, man. Because the opposite thing that could have happened, right, our other alternative, which is what I had thought might be the better idea, and we just came to a decision with the band, was like, you guys can go ahead and practice, but like, just leave me out. But the way that we work and have always worked is vocals are often a marker for changes, or, you know, building up, or whatever you're going to do. The vocals is kind of going to tell you when that happens. And so what we didn't want to happen was that the band practice it wrong without me, and then we go to the studio and play it wrong. I think probably we made the wrong choice, but we made the choice we made. It turned out how it turned out, and I think it turned out pretty fucking good. But if I had it to do all over again, I'd be like, even if we just don't practice at all, like, we know these songs. We knew those songs. We practiced a lot, and I think we probably would have done ourselves a favor if we had just laid off for a little bit.
What would you say kept Dust Devil from being Never Better 2.0, considering a number of the same people were in both bands? Is that where I don't know. It kind of was, to me, honestly. It was just, I think, just a progression. I think where Never Better left off is kind of where Dust Devil ended up going.
I can see where, in a way, it was, because we were very comfortable with each other's songwriting and things like that from our experiences in Never Better, but I think, like, it was really kind of Mike's vision and then my songwriting, and then stripping it down to, hey, maybe we don't need 3 guitars, maybe we only need 1. If we have a set idea in mind that we're going to take this down and the bass is just going to cover what that rhythm would have done, and we can do leads on the 1 guitar and just leave it at that, and it's just everybody has their one job to do, and everybody does their job, and that's how it turns out good. Never Better, I feel like there was more people putting input into the songwriting. There was a different approach to it, and I feel like just the way that things were set up and the instrumentation made it very different in my mind. And like in Never Better, like, if I was up front singing a song, it was because we were fucking around more than anything, right? Like, I had no business up there and Never Better. Whereas this, it's like, no, that's the only thing you're going to be doing. Like, you don't touch another fucking instrument, motherfucker. You just have a microphone and a fucking pen and paper. That's your job, and you do your job. And like I said, that was sort of the outline that I kept going forward in a lot of my other bands. And I just felt like it had a different mood to it. It had a different strategy to it, and it ended up with a pretty different sound.
Do you think most people understand how much work goes on behind the scenes of local shows? Fuck no. People have no idea. Even the people that are in it half the time have no idea. No idea what it takes to make the arrangements. How are we going to get paid? When do we got to show up? Who's going to go on first? All these logistical types of things. There's usually only like one or two people. And in most cases, even if you're a band doing a trade show or you come in, you're working with one point of contact and you're just going on when you want, right? And that's the nicer gig, is when you don't have to belabor yourself with all that stuff. But no, I don't think a lot of people know exactly what it takes to coordinate moving a bunch of shit. It's like moving, man. How would you like to move all the time? It sucks.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I've set up some shows, but I set up just like some local, like, we rent a place and we just decide what we're gonna do. Whereas what you were doing was like working with businesses, working with people that we didn't really know who were setting some stuff up, or like, yeah, you were doing some shit that was a level above anything that I had done, and it was at a time where we needed that. So it was fortunate that you were able to get a handle on that like you did.
Are there any songs that Dust Devil didn't get to record that you wish had been? Yeah, I think we had a pretty robust catalog of stuff. I think to some degree a good chunk of it was recorded in some shape or form somewhere. But yeah, there's some stuff I wish we would have, that slipped through the cracks, that we should have recorded. I can't name the songs right now. I don't remember.
There were a ton of songs that I would have loved to have recorded. I remember Enough was one of them that I think had originated in Mortheo, actually, like at the very end, and then kind of came over to Dust Devil, and then actually after that went on with Another Freak Accident. But it was always one that it was like, it would be on the set list a lot because it was just different sounding. It was a good kind of a way to break pace, and we liked to play it, but it just was never at the top of the list for recording. I remember there was one that was called A Miracle that was pretty good. Nobody's Bulletproof, that was a really good one that we liked to play. And Because You Love Me, that's another one that has been in multiple bands. I actually found a set list here that has a lot of them. The Face, that's another one that's been in multiple bands that is fun to play, but just didn't quite make the recording. I remember Silver State Royalty almost had more of like a punk sound to it, but that was a fun one to play. Burn With Me, that Mike brought to the table. The Enemy, that one was a good one. And then, I see a couple on this set list that I'm like, oh man, you'd have to run that by me for me to remember what it was at this point, because it's been so long. But yeah, I kept an old set list from Stonies. that's another place that we played that was interesting to me. That's like, I remember being so isolated in Reno, really, outside of you guys and your friends. And at Stoney's, we actually met some folks that, like, I actually had some friends of my own, and that was like the only place that I really made a connection with anybody in Reno that wasn't somebody that you guys introduced me to. And I remember that was an interesting venue to play at for an all ages thing. It was just kind of like this big warehouse, and I know people kind of complained about the acoustics and the sound of it, but as far as just having a lot of space to do what you're doing, that was really cool. And they had like a big stage set up. It was a fun one to play. But yeah, no, those songs, I would love to fucking record those songs. And so we have there a little bit of foreshadowing as to what's next. That is the last episode that we're doing for Dust Devil, and we are now moving on to another freak accident. So thank you again to everybody who took the time to do some recordings and such for me. It's been great reflecting on this band. Really learned a lot from playing in this band. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.